And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. A very happy Tuesday to everybody out there. Kalani Watch Day 2 underway. And let's not waste any time. Let's go out to our air link, which means you can also see him on YouTube, our YouTube channel, or you can find him on Twitter at Mitch_Harper. It is our BYU Insider, Mitch Harper. What's going on, Mitch?
Busy times, Ben. It's always exciting, with Big 12 football championship game and this and signing day. Busy week.
It's 10:06 right now. Where is BYU with Kalani Sitake? Do you feel like we have updates up to the minute on what's going on? Have things changed this morning?
Nothing's changed too much. I think the biggest thing is that BYU is 100% committed to try to get Kalani Sitake retained. This is not some thought of let Kalani walk to bring in Jay Hill to be the head coach. They want to retain Kalani Sitake and keep him because they feel like Kalani Sitake is the perfect man for BYU.
So along those lines, and I know there are rumors that BYU is willing to increase pay, coaches pool, NIL, facilities, all these different things, which is essentially what Penn State has been offering. Do you know if it's the goal would be to 100% match what Penn State threw out there, because the rumor was $10 million a year at least? I mean, do you know what level BYU is willing to go to match what the offer would be?
Position BYU to be in a place where they can be, one of the top programs in the Big 12 in resources and be an annual contender. I think, when Kalani Sitake, it's not solely a specific dollar amount that he needs. Anytime that he's pursued this sort of thing, 2021, when BYU got invited to the Big 12, he looked for a contract extension because he was getting interest from Oregon and Washington, but he ultimately wanted to be at BYU. I mean, through all this, Kalani has been underappreciated at BYU at times. He's nowhere near the highest paid coach in the Big 12. Get him to a level where that says, one, he's taken care of, his staff's taken care of, and this program is in fact the winningest in the Big 12 in the 16-team era. Start acting like it. And I think BYU sometimes gets a little reactionary in moments, but BYU's committed to make BYU one of the tops in the Big 12.
So along those lines, do expectations have to change with Kalani if they do retain him and the cost goes up and the resources go up and the investment goes up? Does it change what the belief is and what he has to accomplish, or is what he's done over the last 2 years kind of the bar he just has to continue to meet?
Of course, he's got to continue to level it up, and because Kalani wants to get to a national title. That's the whole purpose of it all. Where sometimes people get upset about these college football playoff committees and how they view BYU. I think sometimes fans view BYU the same way and think there's a ceiling. Kalani's looking to break that ceiling. He's done it throughout his time at BYU in the 10 years he's been the head coach. No one thought they could win big road games against ranked teams. He's done that. No one thought they could unseat Utah as the top football program in the state. He's done that. Kalani has reinvented with the brand of what BYU football is. The Big 12's helped that, but Kalani has matched that, and he's leveled the program up. He can continue to break through the ceilings and get BYU to heights. This is all in an effort to get BYU in a position to where they can become a national title contender, not just a Big 12 champion, be one of the premier brands in the Big 12, but become a program that can go chase national titles. That's the big picture to all this. That's what Kalani wants to accomplish at his alma mater. BYU sometimes a little reactionary, not always forward thinking, because you could have saw the dominoes coming potentially. With all these coaching carousel openings back in September and October, there's always a ripple effect that could tie back to Kalani Sitake. And, the cliche narrative from national media when they say, oh, it's not a fit for Kalani Sitake at State College or Penn State. No, he'd be a fantastic fit because he can connect with anyone regardless of their social, economic backgrounds. I mean, I've seen every step of the way of Kalani Sitake's career at BYU from the moment he had his press conference nearly 10 years ago this month in the BYU broadcasting building to now. The type of players that he's had were guys that I've never thought in my wildest dreams BYU could get in there because of their backgrounds and things like that. It's because of Kalani in many respects, because of the culture that he's built. That can translate in this retention era of college football to any program. And the resources that Penn State could provide him, he could absolutely win big there. Now, would he win to the level that they expect by always getting national championships and Big Ten titles like the Ohio States of the world and now Indiana's? I don't know about that, but he would always be in the mix. And so I think that, Kalani, but to his soul, BYU football lives in him. And it's not unauthentic. It's not just a front, an entertainment ploy. BYU football is Kalani Sitake. And that's why he's the perfect man for this BYU program. And they've got to keep him at all cost. So
why was he listening to Penn State?
Because, again, sometimes he's been underappreciated. You look at the long-term extension last year, BYU didn't disclose for the first time ever an extension of what the length of that terms were. And, that was something that was kind of a little bit strange, where, again, it was never viewed as a extension that put him in the upper tier of the Big 12 in terms of salary. Coach Prime, big, huge celebrity, I think a really good football coach too, but he steps into Boulder and instantly gets, $8.5-9 million. Why isn't Kalani getting that after a guy that's grinded and done a lot in his decade at BYU, where he first starts out, getting handcuffed with Ty Detmer as the OC in an effort to get this job and execute the vision that he had for the program? There's been some ups and downs. He's had to navigate independence, but in the Big 12 era, he's really taken this thing off to great heights. And so understand, hey, if you're not going to pay me and pay my staff to the level that I think is fit for a program that, again, is the winningest in this iteration of the Big 12, well, now I have to kind of listen to my options. And the thing is, Kalani Sitake is a massive college football fan, and he would connect with that Penn State fan base, and he sees the brand of that. I mean, it's all strategic too. I mean, this guy doesn't just do things uncalculated. He would talk to places that would be an actual potential fit. And with a crazed fan base like Penn State, I think he would totally work there. They'd probably hate it at first, but then they hear the guy and they'd probably love him. So I think you got to listen all the time. Sometimes you get underappreciated in these jobs. It happens, even in our line of work sometimes. It's like you got to listen to these opportunities. And I think Kalani was rightfully so to listen to this out. And I think it can work out in the end for BYU. But I think this is also the moment, too, where it lets the fan base know that at times I think they've underappreciated Kalani, too. Not everyone, but I think pockets of the fan base have thought, oh, Jay Hill could be instantly better. And I think Jay Hill would be a fantastic coach. I remember 10 years ago, you and I were on a show back in another life. And I remember saying the top two candidates, not Ken Niumatalolo, it was Kalani Sitake and Jay Hill. Mm-hmm. Now these two together, it's an incredible tandem. And Jay Hill would be a fantastic head coach at BYU, really anywhere. But Kalani is the perfect guy because he just embodies everything that the program has to offer. And I think there's a lot more for him in his coaching career. But I think this also is that point that says, kind of in the same breath as Kevin Young, like, oh, we got a head coach that turned down Penn State. Kevin Young had maybe NBA opportunities that he could have pursued. That's been a big thing. Like, hey, we got a head coach, BYU does, in that turned down the NBA to be at BYU. Now that moment's there for Kalani where, the Oregon talk that was there, but it's kind of a little bit of gray areas. Like, did they offer, did they fully give him everything like Penn State's, making him a top priority? This would be a big win for BYU to say, hey, we got a coach that was wanted by a Big Ten blue blood, and he stayed at BYU. This is your guy of the future to take BYU to even greater heights than what they've been in the first 3 years in the Big 12.
What do you think the expectation is for Kalani if he continues to win at this level at BYU? He gets paid, he gets this commitment this year, and next season USC comes calling, or Washington comes, or at some point Dan Lanning leaves and Oregon comes. Like, do you think BYU is going to be comfortable if this happens over and over, or do you think Kalani is going to be more selective with that with the teams he's willing to talk to?
Well, I just think those programs, I mean, West Coast football, why can't BYU be better than those programs? Washington, it's a good program, but I mean, they've been really good this year at home, and like no one talks about them. They're just kind of forgotten in the Big Ten. Same to some extent with USC. I think BYU can be one of the great programs out West. I think they can. They got that ability. They've got the fan base. They've got the support to do that, where consistently BYU fans always show up. And that's one of the rare things out West anymore. I think this whole state does that with college football, where no matter what, these programs, these fan bases show up for college football. And that's a huge thing, especially in the NIL era and rev share. You're going to have inspired fan base. I mean, the reaction from people just on social media to this sort of move, like BYU fans it says a lot when a coach potentially leaves, and then, just the support that comes out. And again, I think sometimes there's been pockets of the fan base that have underappreciated him, but I think, Kalani, to me, this would be a move where, okay, this you're locked in. Enough of the, extensions, now it's all in place to go forward. And hopefully this would be the move that says you're going to be that guy that you aspired to be when you first took this job, the Polynesian Lavelle Edwards. That would be the thought here with this type of move.
Do you think he's going to coach for 10 years? I mean, how long do you think Kalani wants to do this?
It's a good question. I mean, he's already 10 years in. I mean, I've kind of wondered this myself. I think anything beyond another 7 would be pretty, I don't say surprising, but that would be compared to what you see in today's landscape with coaches, that would be pretty shocking. I think if you can get another 5 to 7 years after this one, that'd be huge. And then that kind of coincides with this media rights of the Big 12 era and, whatever happens next in whatever, college football takes in the next form of the sport after the 2030s. But I'd say another 7 years at least.
I would imagine the quicker this gets wrapped up, either direction, the better for BYU. I mean, I guess unless he's leaving for Penn State, that would not be ideal for the conference title game. But you'd have to expect BYU wants this to be done today whenever to keep him, but today at the latest, so you can start focusing on the biggest game in 30 years for BYU coming up on Saturday?
No question. And signing day tomorrow, too. I mean, you got a top 25 recruiting class that needs assurances that you're their head coach, and they don't want to just sign officially and not know who the head coach is going to be. So this is critical, I think, for both programs to say, who are you going to sign with? It's time to move forward and get this thing done. So as soon as possible would be ideal here.
What do you think Penn State thought they were getting, not just Kalani as the head coach? Do you think they expected coordinators, players, that type of movement if they were bringing Kalani in?
Definitely. I mean, because when you're looking at this sort of operation at BYU, it's not just Kalani, it's the whole product of what he's producing. And you'd probably want him, and I'm sure Kalani being a man who loves his staff and the people that he works with. I mean, this was the dream staff that Kalani envisioned when he took the job 10 years ago. And it was a slow build to get here, but it then happened, and it's got a lot of head coaching experience. So yeah, I'd expect a lot of it to be the staff going with him too. Who that would be, that would be a big question, but I'm sure Jay Hill would be a big piece of that too. And that's where it would get interesting if Kalani left. Is it just a slam dunk to assume Jay Hill would be the head coach at BYU? I'd like to think that would be a better gig than being a defensive coordinator, but still, it's hard to argue. So, I mean, I think that would be it seems like, Penn State, with their resources and their commitment to their football program, they do whatever it takes. If they felt confident in a candidate, they would go the full distance to get whatever he needs to succeed.
How should BYU be feeling about going into this game against Texas Tech on Saturday?
It's a tall task, and Texas Tech, whether there was the coaching distraction or not, and I believe it completely is. I know Kalani said it's a good thing, and I don't know if I can really get on board with that, because whenever there's uneasiness and uncertainty in college football programs, other teams are going to pounce and then start contacting agents and try to put out feelers of, hey, this could be out there in the portal if your coach leaves. And that creates uneasiness, and that takes away from just any sort of the normal routine and what happens in the workflow of a given week. So it's definitely a distraction, but I think Texas Tech is a huge challenge, even if BYU didn't have this distraction. And it's going to take a massive effort by BYU to get this done, because I think, I've been covering BYU since 2014 on the beat, and this is the best defense I've seen BYU go up against. There's been some good ones, even before 2014, 2009 Oklahoma, some of the Utah defenses. I think Texas Tech's the best defensive front BYU's faced in the last, 10, 11 years. And they are for real. And I think when Kalani Sitake says they are the best team in college football, I think they're right there. I think at a minimum, they are the third best team in the sport. So this is going to be a massive effort by BYU to get this done. I think that they've got to be able to have the quick passing attack working for them in this game. They can't just solely rely on LJ Martin to get this done. I mean, LJ's got to be huge. He's got to at least get 100, but they've got to be able to have a quick passing attack that can also almost act as a rushing attack too, to maybe pick up some, 3-4 yards to get you in 2nd and 6, because they had never had any 2nd and manageables. It always felt like it was 2nd and 10, 2nd and 9, and they were always behind the sticks. Just be in a manageable situation and try to get some methodical drives to eat up some time. And they got to get some chunk yardage too. I think that having a big play, pop off like they had last week where, Parker Kingston goes off for a 55-yard punt return instead of a muff punt, things like that where the complementary football comes into play. BYU's got to show that and then some against this Texas Tech team, who again, I think is like Kalani, I think is one of the best teams in the sport this year.
I've not hid my disdain for the college football playoff, not just because of, the ranking system and who's in and who's out and what it's actually designed to do, but because I think it does diminish great seasons if you don't make the college football playoff. And I think BYU has had a great season. If they don't make the college football playoff, how will this season be remembered and compared to other good seasons in BYU history?
It's a good question. I think that it would be viewed as a season where it wouldn't, I don't know if it would be viewed as in high regard as maybe last year. It's tough because I think it's one of the best teams in BYU football history, just like last year. I think it's better than last year's team, this group. But I just think now that you're at the championship game, and if you get left out, I think people will always just remember the fact that the committee hosed them. It would join the ranks of 1996 where, and over time, of course, 1996 is viewed as one of the great teams in BYU history, but they got turned down for the Bowl Alliance. It was Texas, 9-3 Texas, they got picked instead of 13-1 BYU to go to the Fiesta Bowl. I mean, this is just the same song and dance every form of the postseason of college football. This happens to BYU. It's shocking. And that's why I don't understand why people outside the SEC Big Ten echo chamber do not want a 24-team playoff that has 4 automatic bids to every Power 4 league, because then you get the chance to truly determine how the strength of a conference is, because it gets played on the field. You have equal bids, automatic qualifiers for everyone, and then it's settled on the field. You want to say the SEC is the best league? Okay, settle it on the field and have these 4 Big 12, 4 SEC, 4 Big 10, 4 ACC, and 2 Group of 6. Play it all out, and then it all gets determined out there, because I think that would be the best thing, because I don't think many teams would want to face, BYU or Utah in a bracket. That would be a tough out, especially if they're at home. So that's what I want to see eventually with the sport, because if you can minimize the playoff committee, that's better. I mean, I asked directly, why is BYU to the playoff committee chairman? I asked him point blank, why is BYU behind 2 lost teams? And then he just laid out all these wins over ranked teams, which happened in September before their playoff rankings occurred. So they're obviously getting influenced by media pollsters, and those same media pollsters are the people that are saying, well, my process, I don't really, it's not that big of a deal. No, it is a huge deal. And it has these perceptions, and BYU has been the most underrated team and kind of disrespected team in the playoff era when it comes to rankings. So this is just the same song and dance. You'd have to think that BYU, circling back to this season, if they could win a bowl game, then it would be viewed as kind of a high note. But I think this year would be different from the postseason side of things, because there would not be as much motivation because of the letdown. Because last year you could kind of get up for Coach Prime, the Buffs. You didn't play in the Big 12 championship. This is the de facto people's Big 12 champ. You wouldn't have that this go around if you played USC in the Alamo Bowl, or you played an ACC team in the Pop-Tart Bowl. Maybe if you played Miami, maybe. But I just think that would not be as inspiring as, say, last year's situation.
Find him on Twitter at Mitch_Harper. Read all of his coverage at KSLSports.com, including the latest on Kalani Sitake, up to the minute, and whether he's going or whether he's staying. Mitch, really great stuff. Thanks for jumping on.
You bet. Take care.
There he is, Mitch Harper, our BYU Insider at KSLSports.com. Again, make sure and go read him. Follow him on Twitter to keep the latest. And you know what? Thing I don't talk about a lot. Subscribe to our push notifications, our text line, if you want to make sure you do get the latest stories as they break. Mitch is as good as anybody and better at getting them up online quickly, and then getting them sent directly to your phone so you know the news as soon as it happens. You can do it all at KSLSports.com. All right, when we come back, top 3 stories at KSLSports.com. Stick around, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.